Half. Last week, it was announced that migrants crossing the English Channel from Calais and everywhere else, but mostly from Calais, will be sent to Africa for our Commonwealth cousins in Rwanda to process their claims. We're not the first of Her Majesty's dominions to ship would-be migrants to remoter parts of the Commonwealth. Australia deals with its own illegal incomers by sending them a couple of thousand miles away to Nauru, which is basically a small rock of bird droppings. Nothing against that. The phosphate business was very lucrative for them until the bottom dropped out and the government of Nauru was forced into alternative economic strategies, such as investing in a terrible West End musical about Leonardo, which flopped spectacularly. My next guest, Elahe Zivardar, also loves the theatre. She's an Iranian artist and filmmaker who was detained in Nauru from 2013 to 2019, and her photography helped expose the conditions in that detention centre. She's now made a film about it, searching for Arama Sayesh Gar. Elahe, but just before we get to Nauru, you decided you needed to get out of Iran, which is entirely reasonable. I don't think many of the people watching this would want to find themselves living in Iran. Why did you pick Australia?
Well, hello, Mark. Happy Easter to you and your viewer. First of all, I really appreciate that you are trying to cover the issue from different angles. Well, at the time, I didn't have enough time to think where I'm going to. It was just the first solution, the first way that I could find. So I didn't have any plan to how to seek asylum from a country. So at the time I was vulnerable with no solution. It was just the first thing that I could do without any planning. So that's what led me to being exiled and imprisoned for 6 years in the Pacific island of Nauru. I sought asylum from Australia actually because I saw democracy exists. I thought democracy exists in Australia, but I was wrong. It wasn't.
Australia is a democratic society, but it has famously about the toughest immigration laws among the Western world these days. I mean, America has open borders. The UK has an open southern border, more or less. But Australia, even a subject of the same Queen from, say, England or from Canada, cannot get on a plane to Australia without having a visa giving them permission to land in Australia. So I wonder, I'm curious as to what's going through your mind when you decide to go to a country with the toughest immigration policies in the West.
Well, actually, Mark, I wouldn't say this is the toughest immigration policy in the West, as we are seeing that how quick they are giving visa to Ukrainian refugees. That's the issue of racism. I would say everything that they did was a policy based on racism to make money and enrich a few private companies. That's the brief of the situation and what happened to us.
Well, do you think it's that, or do you think it's? No, I'm just curious to understand the thinking here, because as you know, Iran has diplomatic relations with all kinds of countries. I'm not even sure it should have diplomatic relations because it's a state that sponsors state terrorism. So I've no idea why countries want to maintain embassies there. But they do. And Australia has an embassy in the heart of downtown Tehran. I find it puzzling that you didn't know what was going to happen to you, considering this terrible place in Nauru. And I don't want to be in a detention camp in Nauru myself. I've got no desire to. But it's been there for 20 years. And the Australian embassy in Tehran says, please note that all foreign nationals need to obtain a visa prior to travelling to Australia. Were you stunned when you get there and you find you're then to be shipped thousands of miles away? I don't quite understand why this wasn't known.
No, first of all, when I left the country, actually that was a terrible, weird coincidence that the day that I fled the country was exactly the day that they passed the law. So I had no idea what's going to happen to me. I had no idea that for many other people, it happened exactly when they were on the boat. So they didn't know what's going to happen. And with the picture that we have from first world countries in our country, in Iran or in Afghanistan or Iraq, we believe that these countries respect human rights. We cannot believe that there is abuse of human rights in this scale in the country like Australia or the UK or the United States. We couldn't believe that. Even if we hear that, we think this is our government propaganda to say this is what's happening in Western country. You know, that's the situation. That's the situation that we face. We don't trust our own government. We don't trust our own news. So we don't believe if they say, this country is going to do that to you. We say, you are the liar. As you said, we say, you are the terrorist. You are the one who are doing the abuse of human rights. That's what's happening.
Okay. You find yourself on a boat heading to Australia. How much did you pay to get to Australia? Was it a lot of money?
It wasn't a lot of money. It was, I think at the time it was like $5,000 US. But the issue right now is not a cheap trip to go to a first world country. The issue is not that. The issue is the policy is cruel. Priti Patel is so defensive about her plan and is claiming a lot that it's not even comparable with the Australian policy, while it's exactly the same policy, exactly the same plan. Yes, they haven't revealed the details about their plan, but I say that because she's using the same language, the same excuses that Australian government at the time used. They are claiming that they are going to stop the death of people at the sea. 12 of us died in Australia Offshore Processing Center because of the lack of medical services. We had nothing. A lot of women and children, thousands of cases of sexual abuses on children happened in Nauru Detention Center, if that is your concern. And now,
no, I agree.
You're concerned about the increasing number of asylum seekers coming by boat to the UK, but the policy was never succeed because they never stopped the asylum seekers from coming. Like the number of asylum seekers arriving by plane was much more at the time. So this is just a policy to targeting a group of people. Not you are concerned about like next year that it's going to be 60,000 asylum seekers coming to the UK. They're not going to send them all to the offshore processing center. They are going to randomly pick few of them, send them there in indefinite detention, which is absolute torture to make money. She says this is a development they don't
plan. No, nobody wants to make money out of it because the cost of shipping people to Rwanda or Nauru. What a lot of people think it's about, Elahe. Just answer me this, Elahe. Just answer me this. Does the government of Australia have the right to select its own immigration policy and choose who it wants to immigrate to the country? Does the United Kingdom have that right? Iran certainly does.
Check on Guardian report about the corporations who got contract in offshore processing center, which are the biggest donor of Liberal Party. It was firstly a racist idea for the Liberal Party of Australia to win the election by gaining the votes of right-wing people in Australia. Secondly, was an economic plan just to enrich their friends, their donor. And
it's nothing to do with the money.
It was supposed to be a compensation.
It's something to do with the money. They don't want
Australia are already had
You should have
destroyed
gone. Okay,
all
okay. We can't have a
our money.
conversation if you're gonna talk over. Okay, here's the thing.
No, it's
To
just,
go
I'm
to
very
Australia,
It's just a lot of information, and I'm trying to make it clear. For
No,
you.
no.
And I'm trying to make it clear.
No,
for
no.
you. Just look at the data. Just look at the reports which already are exist.
No, okay, that's enough, Elahe. We can't have it not talking. Here's the real situation. Her Majesty's Australian government thinks that as a sovereign nation, it has the right to determine who enters its country, and that often involves a lot of paperwork. Life is paperwork in the West. America's full of paperwork. Britain's full of paperwork. France is full of paperwork. And the fact of the matter is that you're a talented person from an educated background. If you'd gone along to the Australian embassy in the heart of Tehran, they might well have issued you a visa. But they don't let anybody land unless they've done the paperwork, and they're not going to make an exception for you. I wish you the best of luck with your film, and you've had a terrible time. But in the end, there will be no Western societies if they cannot control their borders. Thank you, Elahe. Rwandans are not